Uthando luka
baba luje Jehovah
Hymn number 31, 31. Halala nangungkosi zabi zingelosi sabongunkulunkulu uJesu wayezalwa ngenkathi yokubalwa ngumluli waphezulu obaqoqa nanzindaba yakwetaba yabo bonke yabo bonke yabo bonke yabo bonke yabo bonke yabo bonke kayusomuso wonke uthixo wahlangana nabantu ngendodana ethu emhlabeni ngeqiniso nomusa ufuna ukubabusa abantu ezonweni bonga khona lendodana iyafana uthandana 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 kwabekade bezondana wematu untu bethu uJesu mfowethu wangena osizini ngokusihlawulela wasivulela indlela yokuya ezulwini
ngiyabonisa inkosi yethu Jesu Kristu ntambama namuhla baba sisondela phambi kobuso bakho baba ngizibonile baba siletha baba ukubonga baba ukuthi uthindile nemeza bethu sikhumbuze ukuthi namhlanje iBible study usuku esazikhethela lona baba sizofundisana ngalo baba sikhulekela lo baba ozabe emiphambi kwethu baba esifundisa ukuthi konke lana azakhuluma baba bawuvele kuwe baba nathi futhi sabe sithamele lona baba Kela sicela ukuthi baba sivule inhliziyo zethu baba ukuthi konke azakusho baba uthole indawo baba enhliziyweni zethu baba sikhule ukwazini sikhule futhi ekudefendeni baba ibandla lakho baba ukuthi noma umuntu eza baba ngendlela engasiyiso ukwazi ukuthi simbone futhi baba sicelela baba umusa wakho baba osinikeze wona baba masisonke isikhathi baba ukuthi silapha baba kungentando yethu namukhlonipha kwethu baba kepha kungumusa wakho baba wasithanda ngawo baba wafuna inhliziyo zethu baba ukuba sizwe izwi lakho baba siyazi ukuthi baba baningi baba abangakalizwe izwi lakho baba sikhulekela baba ukuthi sipha amandla ukuthi sihambe baba sishumayele izwi lakho baba okuyilona lona baba elinesilona baba ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi baba siligweme baba ukuthi nabantu ababazi bafuleke baba amehlo baba imphefumulo yabo baba ukuze nabo balizwe izwi lakho baba bathelekele endlini yakho baba sikhulekela futhi bonke abazalwane basendleleni abazamuza lapha baba abanye bangeke baba baphumelele ngenxa baba imikhuhlane baba ebaphetheyo baba abanye futhi baba njalo kulemini labo abanazo baba empikisweni zabo baba kakhulu sicelela baba lo mthwalo lo bathule wona baba konke lokho basicela ukuthi sazokuthi asenze wona ngawe Jesu Kristu ngomamazwi naphathe amen.
It's a Bible study, but at the same time it's a life skill. Esizokhuluma ngabo namhlanje. Sikuthola laphana encwadini, I think it's the whole chapter. Laphana Genesis chapter 29. Genesis chapter 29. Ngicabanga ukuthi sonke siyayazi inkulumo bazalwane ethi it's a general phrase that people are using quite often these days ukuthi uma bethokozile abantu bathi love lives here ne but uthando lukhona love lives here siyayazi bese inkulumo ngithi right but then what happens or kusuke kwenze njani uma uthando lungasekho lapho when love no longer lives there kusuka kwenze njani so we were actually taking cue from what happened in Genesis chapter 29 just to give you a brief history sonke esiyaziyo Esau no Jacobe bayaxabana ngoba omunye urobe omunye ifa uma sekufika isikhathi ukuthi omunye abusiswe uyise uIsaka ubusiswa uJacobe instead of Esau. Esau holds a serious grudge against his own brother and he swears and he vows ukuthi I'm going to kill him one day uma ithuba livuma I'll kill him but the mother overhears that and Jacob gets sent to the uncle Laban. But then something happens uma ifika laphayana kwamalume wakhe. Genesis chapter 29. Sizofunda sifunde sime kwezinye indawo but I want us to take this story bazalwane and apply it empilweni yethu and see ukuthi kukuphi lapho mhlambe singahambanga kahle khona when it comes to the phrase love lives here. After Jacob had stayed, usefikile manje kumalume wakhe uLaban. After Jacob, chapter 29, qala evesini lika 14. Then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." After Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, "Just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Now Laban had two daughters. The name of the older one was Leah and the name of the younger one was Rachel. Nizokumbula ukuthi mayefika laphayana, the first person that he met before he even met his uncle was Rachel. Because the Bible would show you that Rachel was a shepherd. So it was also very, very interesting and also an eye-opener. The fact that I'm a daughter does not mean that impilo stops. So the girl, Rachel, was actually a shepherd, looking after the flock of the father. So the first person that he met, was Rachel. Mawati yebo siyamazi wathi usese right now. They said no, but futhi naye nendodakazi yakhe iyeza laphayana nomhlami. So the first person that he met was his own cousin, Rachel. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older one Leah, the younger one Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and she was beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, I'll work for you for 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel. Number 1, if you have your Bible with you, underline verse 18. Jacob was in love with Rachel. Verse 19. Laban said to him, it's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me. So Jacob served for 7 years in order to get Rachel. But back of verse 20, but they seemed like only a few days to him because he loved her, or because of his love for her. So in Bible, it's 7 years. It seemed like a few days for him, simply because of the love that he had for her. So, sifundani love as well. Number 1, for you to can be able to say love lives here. Oh, they love this phrase, especially my izinto. Love lives here. So, esikutholayo lana ukuthi into ebeyisisusa ukuthi uJakobe akwazi ukuserve for 7 years, and in 7 years ifane nje neinsuku ezimbalwa, was because of what? Because of love. Ebemthanda kusho ukuthi unreservedly and ngaphandle futhi kokuzenzisa. All right. Then Jacob said to Laban, after the 7 years, obviously, verse 21, my time is completed, and I want to make love to my wife, or to her. Laban brought all the people of the place to have a feast. But when evening came, and when morning came, verse 21, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, what is this that you have done to me? I served you for Rachel. So in other words, I served you for 7 years in order to get Rachel. Didn't I? Why have you deceived me? Why have you deceived me? So, the phrase, what goes around comes around. Ne? So, ngamanyamazi, lempilo beyiphila. Zonke izinto azenza umfowabo before abaleka seziyaqala zenzeka kubani? Kuye manje, ne? Now suddenly he's given somebody that he actually did not work for. But I want us to pay particular attention to verse 26. Laban replied, it is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish this daughter's bridal week, then we will give you the younger one also in return for another 7 years of work. So, esikufundayo futhi lana okunye ukuthi kuyafuna ukuthi achithe nje iviki noLeya lo angamthandi bese unikezwa uRachel, kodwa in return ukuthi kufuneka aseve futhi enye i7 years. So in other words, u7 years wesibili umseva nje usenaye uRachel. Did you know the story that way? Benisazi ngalo ndlela. Kaningi sazi ukuthi useve 14 years, ne? before Batolo Rachel. But then let's read it again. Laban replied, verse 26, "It is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish this daughter's bridal week. Then we will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years of work." So 7 was speed in order to complete to 14. Umseve esenaye uRachel. Because that is the case. That is the explanation that we're getting here. But esikutholayo lana bazalwane ukuthi now ngifuna si concentrate ku issue yakaleya ikakhulukazi and going forward. Angazi noma sizofika ku chapter 32 now. But I'll just mention it just in case. Uleya became a sacrificial lamb for the sake of customs. Kodwa ekugcineni, at the end of the day, she was not going to enjoy her marriage. Number one, ngicabanga ukuthi naye ebekwazi lokho. As sisters, obviously, they were talking about this cousin that has just come into their lives. And uma kube khona isivumelwano phakathi kukaLaban benoJakobe regarding indaba yaka Rachel, uma eseseva u7 years ukuqala, what does this mean? It means lo usemiselwe ukuthi egcineni ekupheleni kuka 7 years uzothathwa ubani? Uzothathwa uJakobe. So it was not a secret, it was known. But uLaban had something under his sleeve. Akazange acacise indaba yamasiko walapho ekhona. He did not explain that customarily, ndoda, I wish ukuthi uzothi uma ubusy useva lo 7 years, I am hoping ukuthi kukhona umuntu wesilisa uzofika amthathe lo oqala, because awazi ukuthola lo wesibili oqala angakagani. He did not say that to him. Poor Jacob serves for 7 years. Uma sekufuneka nikezwe unkosikazi, obviously in the night uyangeniswa unikezwa nesisebenzi, but ungeniswa lo umdala. He only gets the explanation the following day ukuthi it is not our custom to do this here. So yini esifundayo la bazalwane? Why did I actually come to this? Esikufundayo lana ukuthi sometimes ngenxa yamasiko we might compromise the happiness of an individual because of our traditions and customs. Uma enikezwa uLeya naye ngokwakhe ebazi ukuthi kahle hle dimani uthanda uRachel, uyazifela kuRachel. It was not a secret. Useyavuma naye because I am thinking ukuthi it's an instruction and it's because it is customary ukuthi kufanele kuhambe umdala kuqala angene emendweni. But then where is the happiness going to be in this kind of a marriage? Number one, it is what one can call an arranged marriage. Number one. Number two, ukuthi nanoma ngabe kuhleliwe ngenxa yamasiko wabo, ungena kanjani emshadweni lapho wazi khona kahle hle ukuthi uthando alukho la. So now the phrase that says love lives here is out the window. Ngicabanga ukuthi sonke le sizoyifunda le izinto ezenzeka esekhona emshadweni ezama ukuthola attention yondoda nokuthi indoda imthande, it hardly happened. Jacob never loved Leah. So while we are talking about traditions and customs, ngicela sonke sike sicabangisise kahle hle lento ne, and sometimes also look at the lives that we are living with. Hey, are we not heading maybe probably towards the same direction? But we sithi masikwenza lokho as a form of discussion, bese sibuka nezinye izinto ezikhona thina in this day and age that would probably make somebody to go into marriage lo muntu ebona, lo muntu azi ukuthi ngathi ayizuphela kahle le, kodwa seniyenza ngoba ngizokuthini. And ningacabanga ukuthi ayikho le ngikhulumayo, ikhona ziyenzeka lezi. Umuntu angene abone ukuthi kodwa bangazothi ayizuphela kahle le. I'm not quite sure if this we're actually going to make it beyond 5 years, or nokuthi sizomshaya ngale 2 years. I'm not quite sure. kodwa ke ake ngivumi uthi uthumela kumalume angivume kwenzeke. Asibheke asifunde from verse 31 before we start talking about this. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, underline that, not loved. Ngoba akazange athandwe kakade. Now, while we are talking about this, I'm probably going to say something that is going to sound slightly strange, but it's true. Ukuthi, love does not support umshado. Am I right? Love does not support marriage. But it's the other way around. Marriage supports love. Umshado yiwona kufanele wenzeni usekele ini uthando. Kodwa uthando alusekeli umshado. So in other words, yini kufanele ibe khona kuqala? Kufanele kube khona ini? Kufanele kube khona uthando. You must love the person that you're getting married to. Ngamanye amazwi umhlazana kuthiwa kwangazuthi ngizothumela abomalume hey kwasha kwacima vele kakade nawe into edala ulindilele enye into bazalwane. I think what we also need to do when we look at this is that sometimes our youngsters should not be pressurized by time. And they should also not be pressurized by the questions that we are asking. Uma umuntu seqala ifika ko late 20s and 30s kanjena, because sometimes they might find themselves under pressure to get married. Bese kuba kwangazuthi ukuba single ku wrong. It is not unscriptural to be single, and it is not wrong to be single. Gezwakala bazalwane? All right. So ngizofuna ukuyiphinda futhi le nkulumo. Uthando alusekeli umshado. Kodwa umshado yiwona kufanele usekele ini uthando. So in other words, people get married because love lives here. All right. Let's go back and look at verse 31. When the Lord, or when God saw that Leah was not loved, let's be honest. The first person that Jacob met, Elusa, was the cousin, was Rachel. Just to show you how much he loved her. All right. Verse 8. We can't, they replied, until all flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well, and then we will water the sheep. While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with a flock of sheep, for she was a shepherd. When Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Laban, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled away the stone from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel, and then he began to weep loud. I don't know whether it's or but after he kissed Rachel, in other words, after he embraced and kissed her and introduced himself to her, what did he do? He cried. Not only because he is meeting his cousin for the first time. So a connection. All right? He kissed Rachel, and then the Bible says he wept. So so there was a connection here. And what is it that you want? You cannot work for me for free. He says, your daughter Rachel, I am willing to put up 7 years for your daughter. Nanoma isenikezelwe or wrong, esemtholile Rachel, he still put up another 7 years. And to him, it was just like a few days. You see, that is what love does. Uma kuthiwa love, lives here. This is what love would do to you. Kodwa into esilandile lana ukuthi ngenxa yamasiko uLeah ufakwa emshadweni angazange number 1 awucabange lokucabanga. Probably she was told a week before ukuthi lalela la simtsheli lo cousin wakho lo fikile lo ositshela ukuthi uzoshada ulontuzana uRachel eqala. Kungena wena kuqala la kulomshado. And uvale la. Uma sekufika ubusuku idili selenziwe kufakwa yena laphana naye uvalile la umuntu ubone kuseni ukuthi hayi cha inikeze umuntu wrong. But the issue is that akazange amthande. So yini into ekufanele ihambe phambili bazalwane andi kuba abantu bacabanga ukuthi bangahlala ndawonye. There has to be love. Love must live there before you can say I do. So it says that esenze ukuthi ngibuyele emuva, it's because of what we are reading in verse 31. IBhayibheli lithi verse 31 akazange athande. When the Lord saw that Leah is not loved, he enabled her to conceive. Lalela nabantwana abatholayo nama reasons why abanikeza lamagama abanikeza wona. Verse 32. Leah becomes pregnant, gives birth to a son. She names him Reuben, for she said, it is because the Lord has seen my misery. Love does not live there. Aluko uthando lapho. And ukhumbuleke uyabona indlela udadewabo athandwa ngayo. Uyabona naye indlela atreatwa ngayo. I don't even want to say love because lokho uJakobe ebenakho kuye bengasuthanda. Finish and love. Jacob never loved Leah. But he found himself under such circumstances ukuthi look ayikho into engayenza ngiphiwe yena ngilale naye kwenziwe idili. So in other words we are married but I don't love this person. Especially ebantwini abasazofika endabeni yokungeneni endabeni yomshado. Be very very careful. There has to be love. Because ultimately umshado fanele uze ungene usupporte uthando osolukhona. It's not the other way around. Once you are settled and once you've said I do and once you're wearing this, there has to be love. Because once wabe khona uthando kuzokwenzakalani kuba lula ukubekezelelana ne. It becomes easy to look at this person. Kuba easy nokuthi umbekezelele khona. You understand? And then you end up devising means ukuthi alright ukuze ngikwazi ukusurvive la fanele ngenze njani. Usuya understand manje ukuthi okusho ukuthi fanele ngiswitche ngenze lokhu nalokhu or fanele ngimshaye ngiphendule mayilele ngeside ulala kangcono. But it's not an issue. Mayisevukile kwenzakalani? Love lives here. Ugcina kwenzakalani ugcina uthola nama technique ukuthi no yabona namhlanje ngikhathela I think fanele ngihambe ngiyolala kuqala because mangalala kuqala ngeke ngizime ukubamba ubuthongo mina angithi yabona. So in other words you end up finding ways around living with this person. You know why? Because love lives here. All right? But once ungenathando hey ngiyakutshela uzohlalela amacala ukuthi awuyakhona mina ngikwazi ukubekezelela lento bezalwane ngiyawushiya lo mshado. All right. So I'm going to say this over and over and over again. Umshado bazalwane fanele usekele uthando. Fanele uhambe uthando phambili umshado usuba khona. Love must support love so that love continues to live there. Bega, Lord has seen my misery. So kusho ukuthi empilweni yakhe nanoma ngabe alright ngiyabona ukuthi indoda yama yingithandi but simply because sekunanomntwana ngicabanga ukuthi uNkulunkulu and the worst thing it's a boy. When akusindaba yaqala ngisho namhlanje kunabantu they just go crazy with the fact that I've got a boy child. Ne? Boy child. Indlalifa. Bheka verse 33. She conceives again. And ukhumbule ukuthi lo othandwayo isibeletho uNkulunkulu wenze njani? Sivalile. All right? So that somewhere somehow maybe just but maybe angahle ajike mhlambe agcine semthanda uLeya. Verse 33. She conceives again. And when she gave birth to a son, she says, because the Lord heard that I am not loved. angithandwa. So I'm thinking with Bazalwane, maybe this is also a way, even to those who are in marriage right now, is to say maybe we need to begin to work our things through so that ultimately we can rekindle uthando obolukhona. Angisho that there are problems in any of the marriages. No, actually, I haven't sat down with any of the couples like Davidton for the past couple of years, so I can speak freely. Maybe it's about time to rekindle the love, because umshado ufanele usapote ini uthando. Marriage should always support love, not the other way around. Because I am not loved. Ntolo number 2. So every time umayithola umntwana, she has this idea in her mind ukuthi uNkulunkulu ulibonile usizi lwami, uNkulunkulu ubonile ukuthi angithanda. I am hoping, Bazalwane, especially to those who are in relationships right now, do not cultivate indlela ezoyenza ukuthi ultimately ungathandwa uma usushadiwe, uma usuganiwe noma usuganile. Don't do that. Uma ngabe kukhona ama issues, should it happen that there are issues, sort them out now. Work on your love manje, because umshado sometimes kukhona nale nkulumo abantu abadala bazovumelana nami. Sometimes uzozwa intombazana ithi mina kahle hle akenasho ngaye, hey washa kwacima bese kuthiwa kuye umshado uzofunda ukumthanda. Niyayazi le nkulumo ngithi ningenzi ngithi, but no umshado uzofunda ukumthanda. So in other words, inkulumo enjalo Bazalwane isho ukuthi it is highly possible ukuthi uthando umshado uzothi bawusufikile bese emshadweni buzoshintsha izinto usuku busuyaqala uyafunda ukumthanda, but truth be told, it should be the other way around. So ngamanye amazwi ngikhuluma nabazali manje in this conversation, we actually need to begin to stop saying such things. Ukuthi hayi man hamba uzobona phambili uzofunda ukumthanda. Ayini into enjalo. Yini into ekufanele injengokholwa lento Bazalwane. All of us have been saved by grace through faith. Lisho njalo iBhayibheli ne? So ngamanye amazwi uNkulunkulu wenze konke Bazalwane ukuthi lithi iBhayibheli John 3 uNkulunkulu walithanda kangaka izwe waze wanikela ngendodana yakhe ezelwe yodwa ukuze bonke abenze njani. So ngamanye amazwi bawungakhipha ukukholwa kule equation, it does not matter what God has done for us. Once you remove faith, you would not have been here in the church. All right? So the grace of God does not do anything unless an individual has got faith. So yonke into Bazalwane, the reason why you are here in this cold weather, namhlanje it's not only cold, it's cold and it's raining, but the reason why you are here, it is because of faith. All right? It's because of faith. So ngamanye amazwi kuyo yonke into Bazalwane, you are in the church, it is because of faith. You have been saved because of faith. The grace of God abides in you because of faith. So yonke into ibuyela kuphi ekholweni. Injalo ke nasemshadweni yonke into efanele ibuyele kuphi uthandweni. Everything must be based on love. Umshado bese uyafika ke wona ungena phansi usekele ini uthando osolukhona. So in other words we also njengoba ngishilo ngaphambili, we also need to stop into ukuthi hamba uzofunda ukumthanda. Uma ngabe basesekhona abazali abanayo leyo nkulumo leyo, we need to begin to correct them. Ukuthi no kufanele uhambe uthando phambili. If ever you are in a relationship and you are not yet married, cultivate the issues of love. Make sure that love lives here so that you do not become miserable. Ayikho into ebuhlungu njengokuthi ube semshadweni ungathandwa. Ubelethe ingane ungathandwa. Ubathe wenzani ungathandwa. Kusho ukuthi yazi uma ngabe umuntu wesifazane uzuyisebenzela indoda uzuyithengele nemoto. Ithathe leyo moto yojola ngayo kunjalo. Simply because kusho ukuthini alukho uthando. No matter whatever it is that you're doing, love does not live there. All right? So, in other words, we're looking at this Bazalwane and we're looking at our own circumstances and also sometimes nengane esinazo, so that we can be able to advise properly. Ukuthi hey, kufanele kuhambe uthando phambili. Nendaba yokungena emshadweni simply because sengizomthatha ngoba sinomntwana, very, very dangerous. There has to be love. Love must live there. Asibheke verse 34. Again she conceived, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Oh, now at last my husband will become attached to me." Yabona ukuthi yonke into wrong la. Ayikho into right relationship yaka Jacobe no Leah. And ngicabanga ukuthi sonke by now siyazi ukuthi sizathu yini. Yini sizathu? Akazange amthande kwasekuqaleni. He never loved her. So wonke umntwana amtholayo yena ucabanga imisery. Wonke umntwana amtholayo ucabanga ukuthi akathandwa. Wonke umntwana amtholayo ucabanga ukuthi yes, kwangazuthi kuzoba ngcono because my husband has never been attached to me. Hey, attachment was one. I once taught about a song that TP is playing. The whole town is laughing at me. Z2 interkalangazo. I'm gonna say it again. It was a Sunday. It was the time among groups are split you. It was a Sunday, I remember. Z2 interkalangazo. He says, "Only if I had been kind to you, and only if I had spent more time with you." You see, once there is no attachment, then you need to begin to open your eyes. Then you need to begin to open your eyes. Uma umuntu ezokwazi vele ukuthuka kubize ngayo yonke inhlamba, kusho ukuthi respect has gone out the window, kindness is gone. So you need to begin to re-evaluate the situation that you are in and the relationship that you probably call uthando. Eyibakhona kusisi la ngaphandle sometimes athi my boyfriend he kind ingamshayi athi hayi no lo angithandi lo. Niyabazi ne? Yavuma. No man lo akazange angishaye na kayi1 angikhahlele angigijimise ngeharaba angilalise ngaphandle. Nangithi yabona. Strange ways of that people would sometimes describe indaba zothando. But then asibuyele la endabeni kule story. Ekugcineni bazalwane, before I just open it up ukuthi nje sithi nje ukuxoxa kancane ngazo, mhlambe what we can do is to take it impilweni yethu yanamhlanje sithatha nje example e1 or out 2 esiwaziyo esithi wezinto esithi uma sizibona nanoma ngabe siyabona, but you have this wishful thinking ukuthi mara kuzoba right. You know what I'm talking about, ne? That's wishful thinking. Ukuthi yazi yena unoqeda 2 weeks, unoqeda iviki angangifonela, angangithumele ngisho netext, akungahlali nonke. But you have this wishful thinking, which you know what, but emshadweni uzoshintsha. You know what I'm talking about. All right? So, ama wishful thinking sometimes kaningi awenzeki. Uma uthando lungekho lokho. I'm going to repeat this. Marriage is supposed to support love that exists. Kufanele kube khona uthando. Mawungena umshado usekele uthando so that you can always say love lives here. Uyazi indlela ayingamthandi ngayo lokhu njani kuleya. Uma sekuphele 20 years esebuyela emuva ezweni lakubo. Uthumela izithunywa with gifts. Hey, igroup yokuqala iyabuya yamtshela ukuthi hayi umfowenu uyeza. And he's got 400 men. So in other words, he's got a smaller army as he is coming towards you. Uyapanika uJacobe uyabona ukuthi yana kusho ukuthi kunzima lana because onke lama gifts awathumela phambili uthi uma nihlangana naye mtsheleni ukuthi mina these gifts are from your servant. There's one other thing that I'm also learning here. It is important ukuzehlisa uma ikakhulukazi when you're trying to reconcile with somebody. He calls himself your servant. I am your servant. Tell him these gifts are from your servant. But umbiko uthi no, he's coming to meet you and he's got 400 men. That is a mini army. So he panics. Which chapter 32 uzosifundela uma usukhona uma no, I think asifunde nje msinyana. Chapter 33. Just nje verse 1 and 2 bese siyaxoxa msinyana. Chapter 33 verse 1 and 2. I just want to show you that after all these years, It is not automatic ukuthi umuntu angajike asukeleke bese uyafunda ukuthanda bese uyakuthanda. There has to be love first. Love has got to live there. Chapter 33 verse 1 and 2. Jacob looked up and there was Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided his children among Leah, Rachel, and 2 female servants. Verse 2. He put the female servants and their children in the front. Look up. So ngamanye amazwi uma aqala ahlasela makushone obani isebenzi labantwana. So maybe at least I will be able to prepare myself for the war, to fight my own brother. But let's continue to read. And then thereafter, Leah and her children were next. Rachel. So, in other words, we are talking about a woman who has been miserable in her marriage for 20 years. 20 years, Bazalwane, is not a child's play. Usolo ufuni attention yendoda engakuthandi for 20 years. Uthi mawuthole umntwana uthi no mhlambe indoda yami izomthanda. 20 years. Uthi mawuthole umunye uthi maybe my husband will be attached to me. 20 years. When usolo ufisa, it's a wishful thinking. Bully Abazalwane, it was nothing but a wishful thinking. This man has never loved Leah, and he would have never loved her. Because Leah has never been in his radar. It has always been Rachel. So for 20 years, she has been wishing efisa uthando umuntu wesilisa. Uthole nabantwana balandelane and usoloku uNkulunkulu asoloku abusisa ngabantwana babufana. But uthando malungekho alukho. Bheka uma kubonakala bongazuthi impi isizoshisa ukuthi wenzani. Nasi isebenzi akulandele wena nabantwana bakho. Isho njalo msine. Mfunde wrong. Akasibuyele futhi bazalwane. He put his female servants, verse 2, and their children in the front, and then Leah and her children next, Bega, and then Rachel and Joseph in the rear. Did you hear the language here? Did you hear the language? Servants and their children, Leah and her children. Rachel, kubizwa igama. So God is basically trying, I think there's something that we're learning here, Mr. Man. Marriage is supposed to support uthando solukona. That is basically what we do when we do premarital counseling. There has to be love. Uma lungekho, we also have to have isibindi sokukutshela ukuthi hey kwangazuthi kungahle kungahambi kahle kodwa mhlambe ikhona indlela ukuthi singanisiza to rekindle what you probably once heard. Because sometimes uma beza, you're hoping ukuthi you're actually going to strengthen uthando solukhona. But sometimes you find that there are a lot of gaps when you begin to interact with a couple. And ganingi first, second, third session uyabona ukuthi hey wangazuthi ingahle ingahambi kahle. Sometimes first, second, third session uyabona ukuthi you know what, love lives here. And lo thando lolu lufanele lusekelwe yini, lusekelwe umshado. So for 20 years this woman has been miserable. There has never been love. Love has never lived there. Ekhuleka enzani, thola ingane enzani, iBhayibheli lithi ubekwa yena servants first, yena nabantwana bakhe bese malibiza uRachel. Abaka Rachel abantwana babizwa ngegama. So you can see his heart has never been with Leah. And akwenzeki bazalwane, ayikho indaba yokuthi hamba ngene emshadweni uzofunda umthanda umuntu. Yo, that's a very, very dangerous statement. Maybe we can, before we can pray, is to say, yini enye into esibonayo in this day and age, where somebody will sometimes get into a marriage, nanoma bona ukuthi hey, wangazuthi angeke kuhambe kahle la. I'll mention one. Sometimes our youngsters put themselves under pressure because of age. Ukuthi isikhathi sihambile. Konje ubani othe isikhathi sihambile, ubani othe mawuna 30 late. Ubani washo njalo? Akekho washo njalo. But sometimes abanye ke vumani bazalwane uma ngabe nikhona, ne? 35 ayaya sengibaluleke kakhulu manje. Wangazuthi ne biological clock manje. And then you begin to put yourself under pressure. Ne? And then thereafter bese kwenzakalani? Nanoma ngabe umuntu Tom noma uDick noma uHarry, as long as abonisa ama intention ukuthi ufuna ukungilobola bese kwenzakalani? You agree. But akunathando lapho. Does it make sense? It can also be the other way around. Kungaba umjida othi hayi no 35 ayaye kusho ukuthi manje mina hey soyaqala uyabhala manje ukuthi hey manje mina kwangazuthi ngizolana kusho ukuthi only mangina 40 ngizongisesebhizi ngilanda umntwana crash kanti awubheke usicompare nozibanibani stuff like that. You put yourself under pressure. But into ebalulekile bazalwane, there has to be love. Meet somebody that you love. It does not matter how old you are. Don't put yourself under pressure because of age. One or two examples that can make, because if you put yourself under pressure because of age, you might end up being married, but you might be miserable. It's not worth it. Mina just mentioned age as an example. I can have a lot of examples. Because as we've seen a few mistakes that people are making. Yes, sir. Sorry? With wrong reasons. Yeah, we want to give us one of the wrong reasons. A girl, she's in her 20s, 30s, ne? She drives a Volvo, and she lives in an apartment. And then izinto anazo kube yizo ezikwenza ukuthi umfuni ufune nokuthi ultimately uzophelana. Kodwa lukhona uthando lapho na, you need to assess. Asisho ukuthi abantu esebe affluent empilweni esebehambile ngempilo ukuthi uma usumthola esenazo lezo zinto lezo angeke luze lube khona uthando. Angithi kodwa ke let her have those things or let him have those things, but make sure ukuthi enazo lezo zinto lezo kukhona ini uthando. Love must be there. Love must live there. Kanti futhi enye secret engizongitshela yona ukuthi sometimes umuntu maseka accumulate kakhulu kuyaye kube nzima. Kuyaye kube nzima umuntu mase accumulate kakhulu ngoba uma somthola esenesikhathi ehlala yedwa kancane ku counseling kufuneka uyijike lento lena ufocus na kulawo ma issues lawo, because even to let go of the remote control it's not easy. Dala phela hlala ewa yena usejwayele ukuthi eyakhe ischedule ukuthi uma ihlala phansi nama popcorn ne coffee, to the following day uhlala phansi mhlambe ne pizza nantontoni, but I remote yakhe usuyafika ke wena ke manje wena ufuna ukubukela ibhola bese senaqala neshayisana nexabana. So sometimes umuntu mayise accumulate also as well, ne? It also does not become very easy, but it is possible. Kodwa ke it's a very good example. Ukuthi umuntu ungam-approach umshele ufuna ukushada naye ngenxa yezinto anazo, makahambe uthando phambili. One last example. Sizoyiqoqa le ndaba Brahms.
Yeah, ngizabala today practical example yethu. Let us not just confide it kulabafundisha. Even we as parents, especially women, indodakazi or indodana masifika at a certain age, they play a major role when matchmaking. Right? That's what the so evil and natural parents. Always true. Another thing we have to see when they are about to trust in balance. Amasiko esiphila ngaphansi kwawo. Let's take khona amaXhosa, abaTswana, just make example ngalose two. Kunezinyanga ebaTswaneni. If you are a man and married, you don't qualify to choose. So ukuzukwazi ukuthi undlele inyanga andonsele ngasonto. EmaXhoseni, there are certain things uma ngakashadi noma ethangaba nebhekene wetshela uzobizwa ngomfana. So ukuze ngingabizwa ngomfana ngidelelwa abafana angithothe nami
yabona le amasiko lena ngiyayizwa but yazi leyo uqale ngayo iqiniso ne because iza nakithi abazali ne. So in other words, we also need to be very, very careful. There's the advert lelo mfana lo makathu fonela umama ngesikhathi or gogo ngesikhathi. The first question ambuza yona, when are you getting married? So ugcina ungasayi ekhaya. Ugcina ungasabafoneli. But you see these constant questions, what do? They work in your mind, ne? And they say they actually make you feel good. Yes, in Wangazuti you are inadequate. I really have to stress this, Bazalon. Don't feel inadequate because you are not married. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. All right? Don't feel inadequate because you're not married. Don't put yourself under that pressure. But also not changing abazali. I think that you brought that especially to the fore. Sometimes not ngwenhloso, you know, ngemibuzo esibuzayo kanti sombona nini makoti kanti sombona nini umkhwenyana and stuff like that. In other words, umntwana uyazi ukuthi mayezile ethe uzosibona angeke azahamba angawubuzwanga lo mbuzo lo. You end up making a lot of mistakes. Kodwa ke the long and the short ukuthi imessage namhlanje ukuthi makahambe uthando phambili. Make sure that love lives here. Yes sir. Okay, so challenge ukuthi sokwazi ukubuza. Ini? Isiko.
Ule ya mwontana. Mele chake ya mwontana. Then, ushoni pili lo shaka lo na noma wonzi yo yosiko. Awukuthi naita nje ngomshado. So, asithi mhlambe masathi ithuba mhlambe.
All right. I'm not sure about your second question if I understand you correctly. But umbuzo oqala mzalwane uMalini ukuthi I don't have an answer to that. Kodwa esiktholayo ukuthi the poor woman was miserable for years. And engifuna uku-underline futhi ukuthi after 20 years uma ebuyela emuva esethatha amakhosikazi wakhe ebuyela nawe emuva, if you look at the history in other words 20 years this woman akazi ukuthi uthando yini.
Now baba nomama like those babies they make next week. Sababu kuchukua tu umeona wapi? Inaweza
I can agree with you there. But okay, that matchmaking was because of their traditions and customs. Was based on, in other words, yes, you're agreeing with us. I'm not quite sure it's a question. It's actually a statement. Ukuthi ngoba kahle hle bazalwane bengaba honest no Jacob ukuthi look when akhuleka ukuthi kule 7 years mawusasebenzela uRachel maqhamuka umuntu amthathe lo omdala ngoba ngale kwaloko kusho ukuthi kuyofuneka ukuthi bathathe bobabili mara uqale ngalomdala. He could have been honest with her but he decided to keep quiet. Waphela 7 years kwenziwa umcimbi ebusuku kufakwa lo mdala. Kodwa ke kahle hle zonke lezi zinto lezi zenzeka kubuyela lento ebeyiyo yena uJacob before abaleka ekhaya. Angithi yabona. But the long and the short ukuthi uLaban could have been honest with him. Ukuthi wena khuleka ndoda kulo 7 years lo makube khona indoda emthathayo. Otherwise kufuneka ubathathe bobabili. He decided to keep quiet. And noLeya ebazi ukuthi angeke kuze kwenzeke ukuthi khambe lo mncane eqala because she is raised under the same traditions and customs. Lo uvela ngaphandle ngithi ukhumbule ukuthi ama traditions and customs lapho kamalume. In other words umalume uhlobene nobani nomama awafani nalanga uya khona. So bafika labaveli bazithulela bavala la bamnikeza wrong. All right, ngibone isandla la leyo. Can you be the last one please?
In terms of getting married for the wrong reason.
With the wrong?
For the wrong reason.
For the wrong reason.
I also feel sometimes it's also the way married people treat single people. Married people, they sometimes see themselves as special. They sometimes see themselves as though, for example, but these are sister Palisa, you know. But when you are married, they iterate, Mamus Banban. Hey, Mamma, so sister Palisa, say, oh, Mamus Banban. Other people feel like, oh, because I'm not married, sister Dingy. For example, she's grown, but because she's not married, she'll always be stingy, pretty, you know. But MABUZA, because she's married, normally she'll always be referred to as MABUZA. It's those kind of things that tend to feel as belittled, as though they are not important. And it happens I know, I'm not sure Church of Christ how big it is, but I know in denominations it's even bigger. Mama Shatama, you are just someone, but you must all get on Sunday, need to you are bigger, you are now the leader of ministry, you are now discipleshiping, you know, and all that. I know it also happens in Church of Christ, but I've seen it even bigger outside. I know even in MCs in Basara, but in Namashati, Nisalana Mabaka, Ogulova, Ntuana, Indoda, Tinesimilas, Namarizi, Maolo Vilecho, why? So it's how we treat single people.
So you mean society? It's how society treats you. Okay. Also in the church. All right. Point taken.
Baba wethu uthandekayo uSikhristu Nkosi Kristu siyasondela phambi kwakho Sibonga kuNkulunkulu wonke usifundise kule ndawo basizofundiswa lapho sizofundiswa sichazeleke kuNkulunkulu wonke siyabonga wonke sisizwile sicaba Baba wethu ukuze kuzenake sikwazi Baba ukwazi ikhanyele bonke amandla akho kufanele ukuthi siwenze izinto esizizwile uma ngabe sisogibeni ukuthi singahle sizithole senza sihlanganisa abantu ngemishado engafanele sikulungise lokho singakwenzi khona manje wonke siphepha mangabe senza izinto endlini yakho sizenze Baba ngokwesisekelo sifanele sazi ukuthi ibona kuphi ukuzaziqala nanokuthi ikuphi kufanele ukuthi siqhakamise kunokunye imishado uthando nabantu abathandanayo sicela thina amandla wonke usikhanyele ngaso sonke isikhathi siyabonga thina amandla wonke lapho sisiya uma manje sicela tuhambe nathi unyaka emakhaya siphile manje sicela